Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees probably one of the worst holiday weekend box offices that I've ever seen, with no major new releases set for this weekend, and all of the new releases that are coming out doing not much of anything, one of which is a Darren Aronofsky film that cost about $40 million and is expected to only make $6 million in its domestic opening, which is atrocious. This is kind of amazing. Weapons, which of course has been on a major tear for Warner Brothers the last several weeks, is once again going to take the number one spot. Freakier Friday, which has also had a very good run for a Disney movie, of all things especially, is also going to have a continued good run. And then you have a re-release of a 50-year-old movie in Jaws coming in above a new release, coming in projected right now from Box Office Theory at least to be the number 4 film of this weekend. Again, Labor Day weekend is upon us, everybody, and boy oh boy, it might be one of the worst on record. And this was after the last week or two being some really bad box office numbers, just in a general total box office sense. And even after K-pop Demon Hunters had that limited run theatrically last weekend, which was able to boost it up a little bit, the number one film dropping from 20 million or so, which is what K-pop Demon Hunters did last weekend, going all the way down to 11.6 million for the new number one film, which is an old number one film in Weapons. And so let's talk about these numbers here, because this is some pretty bad stuff. You don't even have to be a student of history when it comes to the box office to be able to recognize, 11.6 million doesn't sound like a whole lot for your number one movie. And when you take all these films together, again, we're talking about a weekend that likely can be around 50 million, maybe less than 50 million. And keep in mind that when we take into account the 4-day totals, it doesn't get much better. These are some of the worst numbers, as I've said, I've seen, not only for a holiday weekend, but for a weekend in general the last several years. And so this just goes ahead and shows you that Hollywood is struggling quite a bit. They are out of excuses. They will continue, of course, to bring up every excuse that they want to in the book, but they're out of them. And the fact is that they've had several major flops this year from big budget films, and where you might have a few movies that actually crack through and are able to reach out to audiences, films like Weapons, for instance, which was on the lower end of total box office budgets. This is the state of things. And if Hollywood doesn't make some major changes soon, it's not just Hollywood that's going to go away, which again might be a good thing. The fact that they're, we probably need some major changes there, because there's some really bad stuff going on in Hollywood in general. The thing that would be bad, at least in my opinion, is that the theaters are being so negatively impacted by this as well. And I think that theaters need to start doing what they did with Terrifier 3 and start working with independent production companies, independent movie companies, and start getting more of those movies out there. Maybe even start to say, hey, let's make some deals with Netflix to try to give them a good deal to maybe entice them to release some of their films in theaters, because, hey, some of them actually make money. So according to Box Office Theory, Weapons is expected to once again get the number one spot with $11.6 million, a 25% hold from last weekend. 4-day total being $14.3 million. Freakier Friday from Disney, $8.4 million, a 6% hold from last weekend. So again, very impressive number there being projected right now. $11.4 million through the 4-day weekend. The Roses is the new film coming out from Searchlight. This is a new comedy from the United Kingdom. There's no budget that I saw of as of the recording of this video. So $7.1 million, though, doesn't sound all that impressive for what probably cost at least $25 million. Wouldn't surprise me, especially with the cast involved. Typically, when you have bigger names in your cast, that budget can have like a higher low starting point. But again, Roses right now not expected to do all that much as a comedy. You have the Jaws 50th anniversary reissue. Again, awesome to see that back on the big screen, making $6 million, just showing, older films still doing better than a lot of the modern schlop coming from Hollywood these days. Fantastic Four dropping 18%, which again, it's a holiday weekend, so it's not all that surprising to see lower drops here in this weekend. And then you have Caught Stealing, a new film from Sony. That's right. So you have a new film from Sony making $6 million projected. This is the Darren Aronofsky film, and making less than Fantastic Four in its, fifth or whatever weekend. Jaws, which has been out for over 50 years, again, if you're not getting the messaging now, Hollywood, I don't know exactly what will. Also, I think the marketing for Caught Stealing has been terrible because I hadn't even heard of this movie, let alone that there was a Darren Aronofsky film coming out this year. And if I did, I had completely forgotten about it because of how bad the marketing has actually been, how non-existent the marketing, it seems, has actually been. This is going to be a thriller crime movie, apparently. With stealing in the title, that's what I would have to imagine it would be as well. The Bad Guys 2, 16% hold there. Superman, 18% hold. Nobody 2, 32% hold. Make a Gun, 20% hold. And then a Toxic Avenger unrated re-release, I believe. I think this is the 2023 film. So $1 million being projected there. Again, really a bad weekend all around for every film being mentioned. Box Office Pro is projecting, of course, that Weapons will have another number one start, right? $8 to $12 million. Caught Stealing is what they think actually has a chance of getting to that number two spot. I think they're being a little bit too bullish on that movie. They also see that as an $8 to $12 million film. And then Freaker Friday, $5 to $6 million. So again, if I had to go with my gut, I would say, Freaker Friday, I think probably has a better chance of doing that number two spot than Caught Stealing does, based on these projections. Box Office Report, they have very similar numbers, we could say, to the likes of Box Office Theory, though they're maybe a little bit better in regards to Caught Stealing and The Roses in general. So the Weapons, $14.8 million is what they're projecting over there. Freakier Friday at $9.8 million, the number two spot. Jaws, they project to get to the number three spot. So again, that would be even worse from them for that to be a top three film this weekend. Again, that's awesome for me because I love Jaws, and I think that's amazing that the film, after 50 years, still has that staying power. But again, a lot of commentary that can be said about these things. It goes ahead and says that the 4-day predictions for this weekend. So again, these are not the 3-day numbers. These are the 4-day numbers here. So that's why you're also seeing some higher numbers overall. So this is what they think is going to happen over the 4-day holiday and not just over the 3-day weekend, which is what Box Office Theory has laid out, right, with the 3 days and then the 4-day comparison. And then weekend Box Office Pro tends to just have the 3-day total. So again, not that surprising. And Box Office Pro has really kind of been falling off. A lot of it seems like it's AI generated these days as well. So for them, they also have Caught Stealing. Box Office Report does Caught Stealing in the number 4 spot with $9 million, and The Roses at $7.8 million. So again, still a really bad weekend overall for the new releases to be in the top, rather, to be in the bottom of the top 5 and potentially even be out of the top 5 in the case of Caught Stealing. Well, again, we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with that movie, but right now it's not looking all that great. Going over to the charts, because we love Chauncey on OMB Reviews, I'll have to add in the Roses and also Caught Stealing. But as I mentioned, Caught Stealing reportedly cost $40 million, having a $6 to $9 million opening, whichever one that ends up falling into, is just, again, an atrocious domestic weekend. So unless it does some crazy numbers internationally for some reason, then we can't really expect that film to make its money back. But let's go ahead and go over to see what the current numbers are. So right now, Nobody 2 dropping off like a cliff. As of the last update, still about $22 million in the red. This film, again, might be able to make some money VOD and down the line, but definitely I think a huge disappointment for what they were likely hoping for after the success of the first movie. Weapons is now at $210 million globally, $45 million in net profit. This has been a huge win for everyone involved, continuing to be the dominant spot at the box office. Freakier Friday, $116 million. This film has a pretty good chance actually to break even this weekend. So with the 4-day weekend total especially, we'll either see it break even or almost break even. And so I think that ultimately that will be a win for Disney. Disney needs those wins because they don't get a lot these days. They have some of the biggest losses of the year with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, in fact. But again, Freaker Friday seems to be one that is actually doing better than what they may have anticipated. But really it comes down to, hey, they spent the right amount of money. They did not overspend on this movie, and it made just about the amount of money that they needed to break even. It's not matching the success of the first movie, but it's doing enough, right? And that's never a good state. You never want your movie to be just doing enough, right? You want your films to be doing a lot better than that, especially when you have some big losses behind your back as well. Sketch, again, we probably say this is profitable. This is Angel Studios, so they bought the distribution rights to Sketch, so how much they spent on that, we honestly don't know. And therefore, their model, because a lot of it is fan-supported and fan-funded, that would include, right, their ability to go ahead and buy, distribution rights, right? So even though they didn't fund this specific movie as far as producing it, they still funded the ability for them to buy the rights to it. And so therefore, again, that's going to be taken into account as well. So again, ultimately, another win for Angel Studios, but for some reason, right, I don't know exactly what's going on with them these days, right? They had that huge win in Sound of Freedom. I think that was just kind of a cultural phenomenon that mainstream media continued to try to ignore and downplay and try to connect with QAnon and all that other nonsense that they were putting out there at the time. But they just haven't been able to find anything even close to that same magic. Bad Guys 2, still not living up to the first movie. It's done a lot better down the stretch, right? Compared to its first 2 weeks, it's almost doubled its money. So definitely a much better performer down the stretch. Similar story to what we saw with the first movie. Though that film ended up going over like $250-ish million, especially if you like adjust for inflation. It's, again, a much better film overall as far as performance. I said before that probably VOD sales is what led to them being saying, yeah, let's go ahead and make a sequel, because even if it doesn't make as much money, we'll probably make some money back and probably make a little bit of profit as well. $47 million, definitely not as bad as it was not too long ago, so they're definitely trending in the right direction. Naked Gun still $20 million in the red. Again, not having the best of runs, having an average performing run at this point. So $20 million, not the biggest of losses, but still, that's pretty sizable nonetheless. Fantastic Four, $134 million, and again, that's assuming the numbers that they have given us are accurate, and I don't believe them for a second. Do not be surprised that this film cost at least a $300 million budget. We'll find out when those tax returns come out of the United Kingdom, and this film probably ends up being a loss of $200+ million for Disney, which, again, not good for them. I Know What You Did Last Summer did make money somehow. Not much, though. Smurfs, still a box office flop at $38 million in the red. Eddington, still also in the red. And James Gunn's Superman, that's right, $606 million globally. That's still $43 million in the red. That's still not making its money back. Now, this weekend, it might be able to get a little bit closer, but as you even saw, right, from what's being reported, Superman is expected to make $2.8 million. That's over a holiday frame. So this film is slowing down domestically, which is where it was doing the best, right? 18% hold is still, again, percentage-wise good, but it's just not making enough money at this point, especially in the international markets where, yeah, 650, I think, is definitely like a best-case scenario at this point. Maybe 620, 625 being a final stopping point. And people might try to argue saying, oh, 620 or $25 million, that's a lot of money. It's like, yeah, that's still nowhere close to unadjusted numbers for Man of Steel, unadjusted numbers for The Batman. So this is a film that's still not doing as well as so many other films have done in the past. And if you want to make the argument of saying, well, you can't compare them, it's not fair, it's like, look, even ticket sales, so many less people are actually watching this movie. You could say, oh, VOD sales are going to make up for that money. Yes, okay. I've even said, right, I think Superman is going to end, right, for the studio at least, in the positive, because VOD sales do have to be accounted for down the line. Theatrically, though, the numbers are quite clear here. This is not the best performing film of the year, even compared to its first 2 weeks, 67%. 67% is what it made in its first 2 weekends compared to the entirety of its run. So this has not had a run like The Bad Guys 2, for instance, where it's almost doubled its money in the first 2 weeks. This is a film that has had, again, a pretty lame box office run, if we're going to be perfectly honest here, right? 2.76 times its opening weekend, right? Slightly better than Jurassic World Rebirth, and even this film, though it's doing better than anyone would have expected it to, this is a film that's still doing a large portion, like $150 million less than the last Jurassic World movie did, and this continues a trend of a loss of quality and a loss of revenue over time. So, again, I just always want to be honest about these numbers here. These are what the numbers are telling us, right? Jurassic World Rebirth, though, is built $100 million in the black, so that's why it's a different scenario for them, because even though it's having, again, a similar box office run to Superman as far as percentages and everything else, and compared to the last film, it's not a huge win. The fact is, they still made their money back theatrically, before VOD, before anything else. They made $100+ million in net gain profit based on the numbers that are available. F1, $100 million in the flop. Again, as a theatrical flop, I should say, at the very least. Look at those numbers, though. 48% is what the first 2 weekends, so more than doubled its total box office. That's why, in many ways, it is a big win for them because of the way the deal worked between Apple and Warner Brothers. Again, we don't have all the details of it, but we do know that Warner Brothers obviously had the distribution rights. Apple held on to just the premium streaming rights, and so they likely got a pretty penny for it, and likely enough to make up for any of those any amount of money that they put into the movie as far as production budget is concerned. We also know that Apple is a multi-billion, maybe $1 trillion company, can obviously, put movies out there, and they have done this in the past, right, where they've had tons of films that they've released that have all been box office losers in different ways. This is just one of the first times where they didn't just where they let off the distribution rights in the way that they did, where they only kept on to the premium streaming. So this might be their pathway going forward, because it seems like it's led to more box office success, allowing Warner Brothers to run with it in this instance, for in this example, and then just everything else that is attached to it as well. So anyway, these are the numbers, though, as they stand. What are y'all's thoughts on it? Again, some of the numbers might need to be updated because sometimes the chart does not auto-update as it should, but they're not going to be off by all that much money. And so what do you think is going to happen? This looks like, again, one of the worst box office weekends we've we've seen in a very long time, especially for a holiday box office. Let me know your thoughts about this and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, smash that like button. Make sure you also smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed Friday. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illick and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribe Star people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.